but there was so much dry stuff in there. Again, it was so dry that I got bored reading it. So, as you know, I don't write these talks beforehand. And I get excited wondering what's going to be said. It would be very boring to just bring things along and read them, you know. However, I can highly recommend this one, Flowers Fall. The other, I could have brought a stack of books. This is a wonderful one if you want to have a really good bit of insight to the Genjo Koan, which is a great teaching on interdependence. In fact, the best thing you could read on interdependence is the Heart Sutra. We really should have a class on that at some point. Hakuin Yasutani wrote this one. And the line that he's using for the title, it comes from the Genjo Koan, and it goes, in attachment blossoms fall and weeds spread. So, talking about the fact that whether you like things or dislike things, it's just how it is. So, in order to find an understanding of this, things as they is, as Suzuki Roshi used to say, no, that's part 2. Oh, that's the exciting part. So, I thought it was really so important that I probably should give some details instead of just trying to talk about it. Let's see. Well, the most important thing to know is the Japanese name for it. Inga. Okay? Let's see. The central concept of Buddhism is termed interdependent co-arising. You see how easy it is to get that wrong. Or dependent co-origination. It's the principle of cause and effect, and it's expressed as interdependent co-arising. So let's see. It's the most important concept in Mahayana Buddhism. The Dalai Lama explained that emptiness is based on the principle of interdependent co-arising. Emptiness, of course, is an experiential awareness achieved through the practice of meditation in Zen and other traditions. So, how is that? How is interdependent co-arising the basis of emptiness? Well, let's not worry about paper. The fact is that nothing exists by itself. There's no need to really try to intellectualize it. In fact, you know, you can't really understand Buddhism at all through the intellect. That's a barrier. So let me just use simple words. As you know, the historical Buddha realized that we suffer, and what the cause of suffering is, and the way to end that suffering, known as the Four Noble Truths. So the Buddha said that suffering is caused by attachment to the self. Attachment to the self. Now it's very important, that word attachment, because some people mishear this teaching as the self. You know, that there is actually no self there. Well, of course there is. Here I am sitting here, here's the self. So it's the attachment to the idea of self. The attachment to the ideas of what it takes to make this self comfortable that cause suffering. Now, the best thing to look at the non-existence of and the existence of is the self. For example, here's something called jhana sitting here. Now, jhana is rather like an iceberg. By the way, Jana Drakka doesn't exist. There's no legal entity called Jana Drakka, by the way. So if you think of it, Jana Drakka is rather like an iceberg. The part you can see, the thing you're looking at right now, the thing you're listening to right now, is a small part of the whole organism of jhana. Jhana is composed of memories and connections. There's so much under the water, so to speak, so much more than this little bit you can see sitting here. But even the part you can see sitting here wouldn't exist without everything else on the planet. For example, I wouldn't last very long, none of us would, if the oxygen disappeared. Where does the oxygen come from?
Plants.
Plants, right. So if the plants stopped giving us that, but what do the plants depend on? The sun, the soil, the water.
Carbon dioxide.
So we're going back and back and back. This is where, if you enjoy reading the sutras, the Heart Sutra can give you this same way back feeling, back and back and back and back. No body, no mind, no colour, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch. Everything negated and negated and negated. Because much as, yes, jhana exists, also jhana doesn't exist at all. Only, this jhana only exists because of all the other things that came together to make this person sitting here. So, without one of those things, it's rather like those science fiction movies, you know, where someone goes back in time, but they're not allowed to alter anything. Because if they alter one thing, then they'll alter the whole course of history. So that's a kind of might seem too simple, but I really feel that's the essential part. That's the essential, the heart of interdependence. That nothing exists alone. Now also if you read the Heart Sutra, you read about the 5 skandhas, the 5 heaps of things that go together to make a person. So everything exists and doesn't exist. Now you might think, well that just all sounds intellectual. What's the importance of that? Who cares? You know, it's sunny outside, why don't we go outside and enjoy the sun instead of listening to this? Who cares? Well, what causes us to suffer? Why are we sitting in here instead of out at the beach or walking a dog or something like that? What causes us to suffer? Anybody got any ideas?
Attachment.
Attachment to?
Well, to staying alive, to myself. That's pretty clear to me.
Is that kind of general agreement there? That's attachment to the things that keep you alive. Well, there's not one thing you can do about any of that, is there? You don't really have much influence on all these different parts that come together. That's why Suzuki Roshi would call it things as they is, just things the way they are. So if I'm busy trying to make myself comfortable, that shows that I still believe there's a self. There is, and more importantly, there is not. So all this effort, you know, how's my hair, what's my makeup look like, you know, how's my dress, you know, what does he think about me, what do you think about what I'm saying? None of that matters if I remember that there is no intrinsic self, there is no independent self. It's an impossibility. Therefore, attachment to that self doesn't matter at all.